more. Bernie out with his boldest policy yet, an even greener New Deal, if that's even possible. The beloved, crotchety Vermont socialist calling for a $16.3 trillion federal investment to fight climate change. He said it would get us to 100% renewable energy by 2050, create 20 million new jobs, and would, quote, end unemployment, all powered by methane-free unicorn farts. Hours after releasing this plan, Bernie was touring a California town called Paradise, which had been ravaged by wildfires. Watch.
If there is any silver lining in this terrible tragedy in this beautiful town, is that I hope people of the United States and the people of the world understand that we need bold and aggressive action to combat climate change, which is the common enemy, not just for the United States, but for countries all over the world.
Bernie's $16 trillion behemoth goes far beyond other candidates' plans. By comparison, frontrunner Joe Biden calling for a paltry $1.7 trillion. Is this a serious policy idea or an expensive fantasy? Juan, let me just do some quick math here. I was a journalism student, but I can still do basic arithmetic. I think $36 trillion for his Medicare for All plan, which he just tweaked, $16 trillion for the Greener New Deal. That's $52 trillion over 10 years, which would be a little more than $5 trillion in new spending every year. That is far more than the current annual budget, which is a little over $4 trillion. He would be more than doubling it. Like, is this remotely plausible in any way, shape, or form?
I don't know, because I'm a journalism student, but I am not as good as you. I don't do the math. But he said, and I thought this was really interesting.
Shouldn't we be doing the math, though?
Well, he said it would pay for itself. And I don't know exactly how it would pay for itself. Now, the key thing is that we pay a lot of money for our healthcare system in this country, and we don't have the best healthcare. And a lot of people don't have any healthcare. I think that's the instinct that you're seeing. And the second part of this is people say, hey, look, remember, it was President Trump and the conservatives who said, oh, we'll do away with the deficit. We won't have any, minus spending in this country. Well, we've had big tax cuts. They haven't been paid for. The deficit keeps climbing, higher and higher estimates. But who's benefiting from it?
But hang on. So everyone's benefiting from the tax cuts.
I don't think so.
Every single, on average, every income group got a tax cut.
I think the majority of that tax cut went to the rich and to the corporations.
Everyone got a tax cut across every income group. That's just
We're not arguing. I agree with what you said. I just think it disproportionately went to the 1%.
But Juan, it was $2 trillion, let's say, of letting people keep more of their own money.
Right.
That is very different than $52 trillion of new spending. Like, these are not in the same ballpark, Beverly. I mean, tell us, can Elizabeth Warren perhaps outbid Bernie Sanders in this auction with all of our money?
I think she's trying to find somewhere a moderate middle, if we can even call that moderate at this point. What I think is fascinating about his proposal that he puts out, he actually said he wants to reach decarbonization by 2050. So apparently he doesn't think the world is ending in 12 years. So I think there's a lot of disingenuous arguments about this issue, because if you're going to throw around that amount of money, you talked about over 50 trillion, give us the details. I'd love a CBO score on this. What are the details?
Dave, as a libertarian, I know your stance is that this plan is woefully insufficient. Much more spending is needed, much more boldness. Please explain.
I don't even need to be here for this. You have me summed up perfectly. Look, just to what you were saying, Juan, if you're going to complain when there are tax cuts that they disproportionately benefit the rich, then really shouldn't we complain that the tax system is disproportionately paid by the rich? I mean, that's why any tax cut you have is going to disproportionately help people with more money. This is, you don't need to be good at math to understand this is insanity. Look, the $4 trillion plus a year that we spend right now is more than any government in the history of governments has ever spent.
And we can't afford it.
You're
we can't
absolutely
come close
right.
to it.
We're running a $1 trillion deficit in what's supposed to be a good economy right now. This is very, very dangerous. And the idea that any serious person could look at this and go, you know what we need to do is more than double the current level of spending is, I mean,
what you're missing is it's going to pay for itself, Dave.
Right. And that's never
all those jobs they created. That's how it's going to be.
But I think, Dave, I think you say it's bonkers. It's not bonkers when you have people who don't have health care. I mean, that's when people say, well, this current system isn't working. You make the point as a libertarian, hey, government doesn't do very much well, right? Mm-hmm. But in this case, you could say, hey, what about the private sector? What about those pharmaceutical companies? What about those big hospital systems. They seem to not take care of the American people. Why don't we go after? You don't ever say, hey, the private sector is failing.
Well, you just named 3 of the most heavily regulated crony sectors in the American economy.
Okay, so let's fix it.
I agree, and I'd like to fix it with massive deregulation and free up the markets. But the idea that we can continue this level of spending, the only reason we've been able to do this from Obama to now is because the interest rates have been so artificially low. If they tick up even a little bit more than they are now, we're going to face some serious problems.
Let's leave it there and talk